something significant is developing in the Pacific Ocean. Scientists are calling it a Super El Niño, and if their forecasts prove correct, it could produce some of the most extreme weather the world has witnessed in a generation. But what exactly is it, and why does warming in a single stretch of ocean thousands of kilometers away carry such profound consequences for the rest of the planet, including India? I will tell you all this and more in this week's Pure Science. But before we get into that, I would like to make an appeal to all of you. As you all know that at ThePrint, we believe in unhyphenated journalism, and to keep that going, we need your support. If you like and follow our work, please consider taking a paid subscription. The process is extremely simple and will be flashing on your screens right now. Now back to the doomsday forecast. And for that, we first need to understand how the Pacific normally behaves. The tropical Pacific is one of the largest continuous stretches of oceans on Earth, spanning roughly a third of the planet's circumference. Under ordinary conditions, powerful trade winds blow steadily from east to west along the equator, driving warm surface water towards Asia and Australia. On the eastern side of the ocean, off the coasts of Peru and Ecuador, cold water rises from deep to replace what has been pushed away. The result is a stable, self-reinforcing system, a warm western Pacific, a cool eastern Pacific, and a global atmosphere calibrated to that balance. Every few years, however, that balance breaks down. The trade winds weaken, the vast reservoir of warm water that has been accumulating in the west begins to shift back eastwards towards South America. Sea surface temperatures in the Central and Pacific rise sharply. Cold upwelling ceases, and the atmosphere above responds because warmer ocean water drives more heat and moisture into the air, reorganizing weather systems far beyond the Pacific itself. This phenomenon is called El Nino. The name was given by South American fishermen who observed unusually warm coastal waters appearing around the Christmas season. So the literal translation of El Nino is a little boy, which is in reference to the Christ child. Now, a standard El Nino is declared when sea surface temperature in the Central Pacific exceed just half a degree Celsius above the long-term average. That is sufficient to alter weather patterns around the globe. A Super El Nino is a phenomenon of an entirely different order. It occurs when temperatures rise by 2 degrees Celsius above normal or beyond. This rise might sound small, but events of that magnitude are rare. And since modern weather recordings began in the 1950s, that threshold has been crossed only a handful of times. The science behind why these events intensify so rapidly comes down to a critical mechanism involving what oceanographers call the thermocline. The ocean is not a uniform body of water. The upper layer are warm and heated by sunlight, but deeper down the water becomes bitterly cold. The thermocline is a sharp boundary separating these two layers. Under normal conditions, it slopes steeply, sitting deep on the western side of the Pacific and shallow in the east, where cold water can rise rapidly to the surface. When El Nino takes hold, that slope flattens. Cold water is suppressed, warm water spreads across the surface, and a self-amplifying cycle begins where warmer water further weakens the trade winds, which allows the ocean to warm up further still, which weakens the winds even more. This is the Bjerknes feedback, and once it is engaged, it can rapidly transform a moderate El Nino into a super one. And as you might have already guessed, the global consequences of such an event are substantial. El Nino does not simply warm one region of the ocean. It fundamentally reorganizes the Earth's atmospheric circulation, shifting rainfall patterns, redirecting storm tracks, and altering weather systems across every inhabited continent. Australia and Southeast Asia tend to experience severe drought. Parts of East Africa face failing rains and food insecurity. South America and the Gulf Coast of the United States are typically exposed to heavy flooding. Atlantic hurricane activity is usually suppressed as El Nino strengthens wind shear that prevents storm from developing. In the Pacific, however, typhoon activity intensifies considerably. For India, the outlook is particularly concerning. We are already experiencing an exceptionally harsh pre-summer. Temperatures of 44 degrees Celsius were recorded in parts of Maharashtra in mid-April, rising further to 44.2 degrees within days. Heatwave conditions have been formally declared across Telangana, Vidarbha, Rajasthan, Odisha, and several other states. Meteorologists warn that the second half of May and early June could bring even more severe conditions. But it is the monsoon forecast that has drawn the sharpest attention. The India Meteorological Department has officially projected below normal rainfall for the 2026 southwest monsoon season at 92% of the long period average. It is the first such forecast issued in an April outlook since 2015. The mechanism is well understood. During El Nino years, shifts in the broader atmospheric pattern weaken the wind that carry moisture from the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, the very winds upon which the monsoon depends. The monsoon delivers close to 70% of the rainfall that irrigates India's farmland and replenishes its groundwater reserves. Kharif crops like rice, pulses, oilseeds face direct risk of failure in a shortfall year. It will be important to note that the Reserve Bank of India has already identified El Nino as a potential threat to inflation. For a country of 1.4 billion people, a weakened monsoon is never solely a meteorological event. It carries significant economic and humanitarian consequences. Underlying all of this is the compounding effect of long-term climate change. El Nino is a natural phenomenon. It has shaped the world's weather for years. But the planetary conditions in which it now operates are fundamentally different from those of even 3 decades ago. The years 2023, 2024, 2025 were collectively the three hottest ever recorded in 146 years of modern temperature data. The Earth's baseline temperatures has been driven steadily upwards by the accumulation of greenhouse gases from fossil fuel combustion. What El Nino does in this context is release additional heat stored deep in the ocean back into the atmosphere, layered on top of an already elevated baseline. The analogy often used by scientists is instructive. If climate change is an escalator moving continuously upwards, El Nino is the act of jumping while riding it, reaching temporarily greater heights than the underlying trend alone would produce. The last Super El Nino in 2015 and 2016 drove global temperatures to what were then record highs. A comparable event today operating against a warmer baseline would in all likelihood surpass those records, with the peak impact expected in 2027. Scientists have also raised a long-term concern. Research published in the Journal of Nature Communications suggests that an event of this magnitude could initiate what is termed as climate regime shift, which is an abrupt and persistent transition in the Earth's climate system from which ecosystems and weather patterns may not readily recover. There is, however, one meaningful reason for cautious optimism. El Nino is among the most predictable climate phenomena in existence. Scientists have been monitoring it for decades through a network of satellites and deep ocean buoys capable of measuring subsurface temperatures hundreds of meters below the surface, providing months of advanced warning. That lead time allows governments to preposition emergency food supplies, issue public health advisories, reinforce flood infrastructure, and prepare agricultural communities for what lies ahead. Science cannot prevent a super El Nino, but it can afford us the time to prepare for one. That was all from me this week. My name is Soumya Pillai, and you were watching Pure Science on the Print.